Reinhard Bonnke was a German-American Pentecostal evangelist, principally known for his gospel missions throughout Africa. Bonnke had been an evangelist and missionary in Africa since 1967. Reinhard Bonnke was born on the 19th of April 1940, in Königsberg, East Prussia, Germany, the son of an army logistics officer. With his mother and siblings, he was taken to Denmark during the evacuation of East Prussia and spent some years in a displaced person center. He became a born-again Christian at the age of 9 after his mother spoke with him about a sin that he had committed. He sensed a call from God to serve as a missionary in Africa from the age of 10 and said that he had the experience of baptism in the Holy Spirit. After war service, his father had become a pastor. Bonnke studied at the Bible College of Wales in Swansea, Wales, where he was inspired by the director, Samuel Rhys Howells. In one meeting after Howells spoke of answered prayer, Bonnke prayed, "Lord, I also want to be a man of faith. I want to see your way of providing for needs." Passing through London, he had a chance meeting with a famous preacher, George Jeffreys, who encouraged the young German student. After graduation, he pastored in Germany for 7 years. His African ministry, which he was principally known for, began in 1967 in Lesotho. He subsequently held evangelical meetings across the continent. Over the 79 years of his life, it is estimated that over 79 million people, a million for each year of his life, came to Christ as a result of Bonnke's ministry. He has been called a giant and a general in the army of God. Reinhard Bonnke died the 7th of December 2019 at age 79. Bonnke died on the 7th of December 2019, surrounded by his family according to a statement signed by his wife. Bonnke had announced on his official Facebook page in November 2019 that he had undergone femur surgery and needed time to learn how to walk again. Early on, Bonnke encountered poor results from his evangelistic efforts and felt frustrated at the pace of his ministry. Bonnke claims to have had a recurring dream featuring a picture of the map of Africa being spread with red and heard the voice of God crying, "Africa shall be saved." This led him to adopt large-scale evangelism, rather than the traditional small-scale missionary approach. He rented a stadium in Gaborone, Botswana and preached with little cooperation from local churches. Beginning with only 100 people, the stadium meetings grew. In 1974, Bonnke founded the mission organization Christ for All Nations, abbreviated CFAN. Originally based in Johannesburg, South Africa, the headquarters were relocated to Frankfurt, Germany, in 1986. This was done primarily to distance the organization from South Africa's apartheid policy at the time. Today CFAN has 9 offices across 5 continents. Bonnke began his ministry holding tent meetings that accommodated large crowds. According to an account published by the Christian Broadcasting Network, in 1984 he commissioned the construction of what was claimed to be the world's largest mobile structure, a tent capable of seating 34,000. This was destroyed in a windstorm just before a major meeting, and therefore the team decided to hold the event in the open air instead. According to this account, the event was subsequently attended by over 100,000 people, which is far greater than the 34,000 seating capacity the tents could contain. Bonnke announced his farewell gospel crusade, to be held in Lagos, Nigeria, in November 2017. Lagos is also the location of a gospel crusade held in 2000 which, according to CFAN, is the organization's largest to date, drawing an attendance of 6 million people. In 2019, Reinhard Bonnke was set to headline the G12 Africa Conference in Pretoria, South Africa. In 1991, during Bonnke's visit to Kano in Nigeria, there were riots in the city as Muslims protested over remarks he had reportedly made about Islam in the city of Kaduna on his way to Kano. A rumor was spread that Bonnke was planning to lead an invasion into Kano. Muslim youths gathered at the Kofar Mada Eid ground where they were addressed by several clerics who claimed that Bonnke was going to blaspheme Islam. About 8,000 youths gathered at the Emir's palace, and afternoon prayers the riots ensued, during which many Christians sustained various injuries and several churches were burned. After 9 years, he returned to Nigeria to preach, Pentecostalism is a renewal movement within Protestant Christianity that places special emphasis on a direct personal experience of God through the baptism with the Holy Spirit. For Christians, this event commemorates the descent of the Holy Spirit upon the followers of Jesus Christ, as described in the 2nd chapter of the book of Acts. Pentecostalism was established in Kerala at the start of the 20th century. Indigenous Pentecostalism in India first emerged from the Syrian Christian community in the state of Kerala. Christianity in Kerala claims its origin in AD 52 when the Apostle Thomas arrived and preached the gospel to Jews. Citation needed. In addition, there were evidences of migrations of Christians from Syria in the 4th century and the 8th century to Kerala. The Pentecostal message from the West arrived in Kerala in 1909 through the visit of George Berg. This American missionary of German descent arrived in Bangalore in 1909 and preached in a convention in Kerala. The first Pentecostal congregation was formed through the efforts of Berg in Kerala only in 1911. This was among first-generation Christians. Berg was the first missionary to reach out to the natives who, clarification needed, did not speak English. In 1913, Pastor Robert F. Cook also came to India as a missionary. He came to Kerala and began his ministry there in 1914. By 1923, Cook had established 36 churches in Kerala, known collectively as the South India Church of God, Full Gospel, in India. Pastor K. Abraham, who was associated with Pastor Cook until 1930, was baptized in the Holy Spirit in 1923, an event considered as the foundation for the establishment of the India Pentecostal Church of God. In 1930, Pastor K. E. Abraham, who believed that local Keralite churches must be independent from foreign organizations for effective evangelization within India, split from Pastor Cook and formed the South India Pentecostal Church of God. He later changed the name of the church to India Pentecostal Church of God. In addition to the work begun by Abraham, Pentecostalism grew rapidly in Kerala through the ministries of the Ceylon Pentecostal Mission, CPM, the Church of God, Cleveland, and the Assemblies of God. There are hundreds of other independent non-denominational congregations throughout Kerala, its strength varying from 100 to 10,000 members. These independent groups are formed mainly due to personal missionary visions received by individuals for end-time harvest. Some of the biggest congregations are, in classical Pentecostalism, the baptism with the Holy Spirit is understood to be a separate and distinct experience occurring sometime after regeneration. Influenced by the holiness movement, baptism with the Holy Spirit was regarded by the first Pentecostals as being the third work of grace, following the new birth, first work of grace, and entire sanctification, second work of grace. John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist movement, taught that there were two distinct phases in the Christian experience. In the first work of grace, the new birth, the believer received forgiveness and became a Christian. During the second work of grace, sanctification, the believer was purified and made holy. Wesley taught both that sanctification could be an instantaneous experience, and that it could be a gradual process. Early Methodists wore plain dress, with Methodist clergy condemning high headdresses, ruffles, laces, gold, and costly apparel in general. John Wesley recommended that Methodists annually read his thoughts on dress. In that sermon, John Wesley expressed his desire for Methodists. "Let me see, before I die, a Methodist congregation, full as plain dress as a Quaker congregation." The 1858 discipline of the Wesleyan Methodist connection thus stated that we would adjoin on all who fear God plain dress. Outward holiness, or external holiness, is a Wesleyan Armenian doctrine emphasizing modest dress and sober speech. The doctrine was prevalent during the revival movement for the early Lutheran Pietists and Methodists, and during the holiness and Pentecostal movements. Some Christian denominations within the Wesleyan Armenian theological tradition, such as some Methodist, holiness, and Pentecostal denominations, continue to observe outward holiness. The standards are, modest and plain dress, which is defined as loose covering from the neck to below the knee in all normal body postures. Women often wear a Christian head covering. This would also include the strict prohibition of mixed bathing. Moderate or no use of jewelry or ornaments of gold, silver, and jewels for personal adornment. Some denominations will only allow the use of a wedding band or ring, while others proscribe it too. A distinction of the sexes in clothing, forbidding such style as trousers and pantsuits for women unless required by work or public service. Christian men are to wear their hair short, and Christian women must never cut or remove their hair, wearing it long in order to have a definitive distinction of male and female sexes. As a continuation, in Kerala many traditional Pentecostal denominations do not wear ornaments depending upon the denomination they are part of. Many traditional mainstream churches even to this day do not allow ornament-wearing believers to partake in Holy Communion as well as water baptism. Most of the independent churches in Kerala do not have a practice of removing ornaments. And some traditional churches don't allow to grow mustache. At the turn of the century, more and more traditional churches are moving away from the practice of mandating compulsory removal of ornaments and classifying it as a personal choice of believers. Hope you enjoyed this video. Kindly subscribe to my channel and don't forget to leave your comments.